I'm 35 years old now, the proud owner of a successful tech company with offices in 3 cities. My life looks picture perfect on social media with my downtown penthouse and frequent speaking engagements at prestigious universities. But 15 years ago, I was sleeping in my car, showering at the gym, and eating dollar menu meals. My father had looked me in the eyes and said, "You are no longer my son," all because I chose to follow my own path. They emptied my college fund overnight, leaving me with nothing when I needed them most. Before I dive into my story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit subscribe if you have ever faced rejection from those who should have supported you, and stick around to see how I turned being disowned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Growing up in Brookline, an affluent suburb of Boston, my life seemed perfect from the outside. Our colonial-style house with its manicured lawn and swimming pool was the envy of many. My father, James Wilson, was a successful investment banker who wore tailored suits, drove luxury cars, and expected nothing less than perfection from his family. My mother, Susan, was the quintessential banker's wife who organized charity galas, tennis matches, and dinner parties for my father's colleagues and clients. Then there was my sister, Amanda, 2 years older than me, who followed every rule and met every expectation without question. I was the odd one out in the Wilson family. While they cared about country club memberships and social connections, I spent hours taking apart computers and putting them back together. My room was filled with circuit boards and programming books instead of sports trophies. From the age of 12, I knew I wanted to create technology, not manage money for those who did. Technology is for the help, Nathan, my father would say whenever he caught me coding. Wilson's work in finance. We manage wealth, not waste time playing with toys. Every time I tried to explain that programming was the future, that the tech industry was growing exponentially, he would dismiss me with a wave of his hand. Your great-grandfather built our family's reputation in banking. Your grandfather expanded it. I have maintained it, and you will continue the legacy. School became my sanctuary. There, Mr. Rodriguez, my computer science teacher, recognized my talent and encouraged me. He stayed after hours to teach me advanced programming languages and helped me build my first serious applications. He treated my passion with respect, unlike my father, who saw it as a childish hobby to be outgrown. "You have a gift, Nathan," Mr. Rodriguez told me during my junior year. "You should apply to MIT. Their computer science program is the best in the country." The idea seemed impossible. MIT was indeed my dream school, but I knew my father would never support it. He had been talking about Wharton since I was in middle school. The plan was set business undergraduate MBA and then joining his firm. But Mr. Rodriguez persisted. "Just apply. See what happens. You never know until you try." So I did secretly. I worked on my application at night, wrote my essays during lunch breaks, and asked Mr. Rodriguez for a recommendation letter. I submitted everything without telling my parents, convinced that I would probably be rejected anyway. 3 months before graduation, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I received an email that changed everything. MIT had not only accepted me, but had offered a partial scholarship based on merit. I stared at the screen in disbelief, reading the email over and over until I was certain it wasn't a mistake. For the first time in my life, I felt validated. Someone out there, someone who mattered in the field I loved, thought I was good enough. The partial scholarship wouldn't cover everything, but with my college fund and perhaps a part-time job, I could make it work. I kept the acceptance letter secret for 2 weeks, rehearsing different ways to tell my parents. I wanted to find the perfect words that would make them understand, that would help them see my vision for my future. Then came the family dinner, where everything fell apart. It was a Friday evening, and my father had just closed a major deal. He was in a good mood, talking about how he had secured an internship for me at his firm for the summer before college. "It will be the perfect introduction to the business world," he said, cutting into his steak. "By the time you start at Wharton in the fall, you will already have connections." My heart raced. It was now or never. "Actually, Dad," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, "I have been accepted to MIT for computer science. They have offered me a partial scholarship." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's knife and fork froze mid-air. My mother's smile vanished. Amanda stared at her plate. "What did you just say?" My father finally asked, his voice dangerously calm. "I applied to MIT for computer science," I repeated. "And I got in. I want to go there instead of Wharton. What happened next would alter the course of my life forever. My father's face turned from shock to disbelief, to rage in the span of seconds. He placed his silverware down with careful precision, a controlled motion that contrasted with the storm building in his eyes. "This is absurd," he said, his voice rising with each word. "You did this behind our backs, applied to some engineering school without discussing it with us first. I knew you would not approve." I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But this is what I want to do with my life. I am good at it, Dad. Really good. Mr. Rodriguez thinks I could have a real future in technology." "Mr. Rodriguez." My father spat the name like it was poison. "Your high school teacher. You are making life decisions based on the opinion of a man who makes $40,000 a year teaching children how to use computers." My mother reached for my father's arm. "James, perhaps we should discuss this calmly. Nathan has always been interested in computers." "Stay out of this, Susan," he snapped, jerking his arm away. "This is between me and my son, who apparently thinks he knows better than everyone who has come before him." Amanda remained silent, her eyes darting between us as she slowly withdrew from the table, physically distancing herself from the conflict. "Listen to me carefully, Nathan," my father continued, leaning forward. "The Wilson men have been in finance for 3 generations. We have connections. We have a reputation. The path has been laid out for you. Wharton undergraduate, then Harvard Business School, then the firm. That is your future." "No," I said, the word surprisingly easy to say after years of holding it back. "That is the future you want for me, not the one I want for myself." His face reddened. "You ungrateful child. Do you have any idea what I have done to secure your place? The strings I have pulled, the favors I have called in? I did not ask you to do any of that." I responded, feeling a strange calmness despite the tension. "I have my own acceptance letter, my own path." "And how exactly do you plan to pay for this path?" he demanded. "MIT is not cheap, even with your partial scholarship." "I thought I would use my college fund," I said, "and work part-time. Maybe take out some loans." My father laughed, a cold sound, devoid of humor. "Your college fund is for college. Real college. Business school. Not some computer fantasy. MIT is one of the best universities in the world." I countered, my own anger rising now. "It is not a fantasy." He stood up suddenly, towering over the table. "You will go to Wharton as planned. You will study business. You will join the firm. Or you will get nothing from me. Not a penny." It was an ultimatum I had feared but somehow expected. Still, hearing it spoken aloud made my stomach drop. "I am not going to Wharton," I said quietly. "I am going to MIT. "Then you are on your own," he shouted, slamming his hand on the table hard enough to make the dishes jump. "No tuition, no allowance. No car, no nothing." My mother started crying softly. "Nathan, please, just listen to your father. He knows what is best." "Does he?" I asked her directly. "Or does he just know what he wants?" My father's face contorted with fury. "If you walk out that door, you are no longer my son. You will be cut off completely. Is that understood?" The words hit me like physical blows, but I stood my ground. "If that is your choice." I stood up from the table, legs shaking beneath me, but resolve firm. As I walked toward the door, I heard my mother's quiet sobs and my father's heavy breathing. Amanda remained frozen, not meeting my eyes. "Nathan," my father called as my hand touched the doorknob. "If you leave now, do not come back." I paused for just a moment, then opened the door and stepped into the night. That first night, I stayed at Mr. Rodriguez's house, sleeping on his couch, while trying to process what had happened. The next morning, I checked my bank account to find it emptied. The college fund my grandparents had started for me. The account that had held over $80,000 showed a balance of 0. My father had acted quickly. Panic set in as I realized the magnitude of what had happened. I called MIT's financial aid office, explaining my situation with as much composure as I could muster. The sympathetic administrator explained the problem: my FAFSA was still linked to my parents' income. Without their cooperation or documentation of their refusal to support me, I could not qualify for additional aid. But they disowned me. I explained, desperation creeping into my voice. My father literally said, "I am no longer his son." I understand, she replied gently, but without legal documentation of emancipation or independent status, the federal government still considers their income in your aid calculation. I spent the next week trying everything. I called my parents repeatedly only to be blocked. I went to the house only to find my key no longer worked. I sent emails that went unanswered. I even tried reaching Amanda at her college, but she replied with a brief text. Give Dad time to cool down. Just do what he wants. Mister. Rodriguez offered to let me stay through the summer, but I knew I could not impose indefinitely. The partial scholarship from MIT would not be enough without the expected family contribution. I faced an impossible choice: give up my dream or find a way to support myself entirely. With a heavy heart, I contacted MIT to defer my enrollment for a year, hoping to save enough money to attend the following fall. I found the cheapest apartment I could, a basement studio with water stains on the ceiling and a persistent smell of mildew. I took a job at CompFix, a local computer repair shop that paid just above minimum wage. Those first months were the hardest of my life. I worked 60-hour weeks, but still barely made enough for rent and ramen noodles. There were nights I resorted to checking restaurant dumpsters for discarded food, swallowing my pride along with day-old bread and half-eaten meals. The lowest point came 3 months after being disowned. On a particularly cold November evening, I found myself standing across the street from my childhood home, watching the warm lights inside and the silhouettes of my family moving about. I stood there for an hour in the rain soaked to the bone, wanting desperately to knock on the door, but knowing I would not be welcomed. The next day, Amanda met me secretly at a coffee shop. She brought a bag with some of my old clothes and a few $100s she had saved from her allowance. This is all I can do, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Dad checks my bank statements. He asks about every call I make. I am sorry, Nathan. You could stand up to him, I suggested. Tell him this is wrong. She shook her head. I am not like you. I cannot just walk away from everything. As she left, I realized I was truly on my own. Rock bottom was not just a phrase anymore. It was the cold, hard ground beneath my feet. 6 months into my new reality, I had settled into a grueling routine at CompFix. I fixed virus-infested laptops, recovered data from crashed hard drives, and built custom systems for clients on tight budgets. The pay was still barely enough to survive, but I had stopped checking dumpsters at least. On a Tuesday afternoon, a customer named Jackson walked in with a high-end gaming laptop that had overheated and shut down during an important presentation. He needed it fixed immediately for a meeting the next morning. Everyone else said it would take days, he explained, clearly stressed. Please tell me you can do it faster. I examined the laptop, noticing that the cooling system was clogged with dust, but the hardware was otherwise intact. I can have it ready in 3 hours, I told him. When Jackson returned to pick up his computer, I had not only fixed the cooling issue, but had also optimized his system, clearing out unnecessary startup programs and reconfiguring his graphics settings for better performance. This is running better than when I bought it, he said, impressed, as he tested it in the store. What else do you do besides computer repair? What do you mean, I asked. I mean, someone with your skills must do freelance work. My company has been having network issues for weeks. Our IT guy just cannot figure it out. That conversation led to my first significant opportunity. Jackson's company, a small marketing firm, paid me $500 to solve their network problems, more money than I made in a week at CompFix. I diagnosed the issue in one evening, discovering that their router was incorrectly configured and creating security vulnerabilities. Jackson was so impressed that he recommended me to other business contacts. Soon I was spending evenings and weekends troubleshooting systems, building websites, and setting up secure networks for small businesses around Boston. Word spread quickly that I could solve problems others could not, and at more affordable rates than established IT firms. Within 3 months of meeting Jackson, my freelance income exceeded my CompFix salary. I began saving money, opening a new bank account at a different bank than my family used. For the first time since being disowned, I allowed myself to believe that MIT might still be possible. Then came the unexpected call from Dr. Lin, an admissions officer at MIT. I almost ignored it, assuming it was a routine follow-up about my deferral. But something made me answer. Nathan Wilson. This is Dr. Lin from MIT Admissions. I hope I am not catching you at a bad time. No, not at all, I replied, setting aside the computer I had been repairing. I am calling because your situation has been brought to our attention by the Financial Aid Office. They mentioned you deferred enrollment due to a sudden change in family support. My heart raced. Yes, that is correct. There may be an opportunity for you, Nathan. We have a special scholarship fund for students with exceptional talent who face unusual hardships. It is highly competitive, but based on your application and the recommendation from your teacher, I would like to encourage you to apply. She explained the process I would need to apply for independent student status, which required extensive documentation of my estrangement from my parents. I would need to prove that I had been supporting myself entirely, and I would need to interview with the scholarship committee. The application process was grueling and emotionally draining. I had to write in detail about being disowned about my father's words about the emptied bank account. I had to get letters from Mr. Rodriguez and my landlord confirming my situation. I had to provide bank statements and pay stubs proving I had been supporting myself. 2 weeks after submitting everything, I sat before a panel of 5 serious-faced administrators in a conference room at MIT. They asked probing questions about my estrangement, my work experience, and my commitment to computer science. "Why should we invest in you, Mr. Wilson?" asked the head of the committee, looking at me over his glasses. "What makes you different from the many other talented students who apply for this scholarship?" I took a deep breath. Because I have already proven that nothing will stop me from pursuing this path. Not family rejection, not financial hardship, not having to defer my dreams. I have been tested in ways most 18-year-olds never experience, and I am still here, still fighting for my education. If you invest in me, I promise you will never question whether I value the opportunity. 3 days later, Dr. Lin called with the news that changed everything. I had been awarded the full scholarship. Tuition, housing, meals, books, everything covered. I could start in the fall semester just 1 year later than originally planned. Moving into the MIT dorms at 19 after a year of struggling on my own was a surreal experience. My roommates were traditional freshmen straight from high school, with parents who helped them move in and bought them new laptops and bedding. I arrived alone with my few possessions in a backpack and a duffel bag. The age difference was not huge, but the experience gap was enormous. While they worried about homesickness in freshman 15, I had already faced homelessness and involuntary weight loss from skipping meals. They called their parents for advice and extra money. I had no one to call. But gradually I found my community. The computer science department became my new home. Professors recognized my unusual background and practical experience. Classmates sought my help with projects impressed by my real-world knowledge. I maintained my freelance clients working weekends to build savings while excelling academically. During my sophomore year, I developed an app that helped small businesses manage inventory across multiple locations in real time. What started as a solution for one of my freelance clients caught the attention of a local tech investor who saw its potential. "This could be huge," he told me after a demonstration. "Would you consider $50,000 of seed funding to develop it further?" That first investment allowed me to hire 2 fellow students to help expand the app. By junior year, we had paying customers and additional funding. By senior year, I was running a legitimate startup while completing my degree. When graduation day came, I stood among my peers in cap and gown, scanning the crowd, not expecting to see any familiar faces. Mr. Rodriguez had traveled from Boston to be there, but no family members were present. I had achieved this milestone entirely on my own terms. Fast forward 3 years beyond graduation, and the trajectory of my life had changed dramatically. The app that started as a simple inventory management tool had evolved into a comprehensive business management platform used by thousands of small and medium-sized businesses across the country. My company, Wilson Tech Solutions, had grown to 50 employees working from our headquarters in Cambridge. I had moved from my student apartment into a luxury condo overlooking the Charles River. My days of dumpster diving and counting pennies were far behind me, replaced by investor meetings and product development sessions. The 25-year-old Nathan Wilson barely resembled the frightened, disowned 18-year-old who had once stood in the rain outside his family home. The validation I had long sought came in the form of a Forbes 30 Under 30 feature recognizing young entrepreneurs making an impact in the tech industry. Seeing my name and photo in the magazine was surreal, a public confirmation that my path had been the right one despite my father's warnings. What I did not expect was the email that arrived a week after the Forbes issue hit newsstands. Nathan, I saw your feature in Forbes. I am so proud of you. Would you be willing to meet for coffee, Amanda? My sister and I had not spoken in nearly 4 years. After that coffee shop meeting where she had brought me clothes and money, she had disappeared back into the family fold. I had tried reaching out during my first year at MIT, but received no response. I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between Cambridge and her office in downtown Boston. When she walked in, I almost did not recognize her. The perfect, polished Amanda of my memory had been replaced by someone who looked tired and uncertain. "You look good," she said after an awkward hug. "Success suits you." "Thanks," I replied, not sure what else to say. "How have you been?" She stirred her coffee nervously. "A lot has changed, Nathan. Mom and Dad divorced last year. Dad's firm took a hit during the recession. He is not the same person anymore." I absorbed this information silently. Part of me felt a vindictive satisfaction knowing my father had faced his own setbacks, but mostly I felt nothing at all. "I am sorry I disappeared," Amanda continued. "I was a coward. I should have stood up for you." "You were caught in the middle," I said, surprising myself with the forgiveness in my voice. "We were both young. But you were brave," she insisted. "You stood your ground. I just did what was expected, and look where it got me. Stuck in a job I hate, because it was what Dad wanted." We talked for hours that day, rebuilding the bridge between us, one careful word at a time. Amanda told me more about the family I had left behind. Our mother had finally found her voice after 30 years of marriage, filing for divorce and buying a small house by herself. Our father had become bitter and isolated, his career faltering as younger, more tech-savvy competitors outperformed him. "Mom asks about you," Amanda said as we prepared to leave. "She would like to see you if you are open to it." The idea of reconnecting with my mother brought a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to reject her, as she had rejected me, to say it was too late. But another part remembered the tears in her eyes that night, the way my father had silenced her when she tried to intervene. A week later, I met Susan Wilson at a restaurant near her new home. She looked older, the stress of the past years evident in the lines around her eyes, but there was also a new confidence in the way she carried herself. "Nathan," she said, her voice breaking as she embraced me. "My boy, I am so sorry." "It is okay, Mom," I said automatically, the words coming out before I could consider if they were true. "No, it is not," she insisted, sitting down and taking my hands across the table. "I failed you. I should have defended you. I should have supported your dreams." "Why did not you?" I asked, the question I had held inside for years, finally escaping. She looked down. "Fear. I was afraid of your father, of being alone, of losing the life I knew. It was cowardice, pure and simple." Her honesty disarmed me. We spent the afternoon talking about the years we had missed, about her new life as a single woman in her 50s, about my company and achievements. By the end, something had healed between us, not completely, but enough to build upon. Our renewed relationship was still tentative when I received a call that tested my capacity for forgiveness. My father had suffered a major heart attack and was in intensive care. Amanda was calling from the hospital. "He is asking for you," she said quietly. "The doctors say it does not look good. I understand if you do not want to come." I sat in my office, staring out at the Boston skyline, considering my options. The angry 18-year-old inside me wanted to refuse to let him face death without the reconciliation he sought. But the man I had become recognized that such a decision would haunt me forever. When I arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital, I paused outside room 412, gathering my courage. Through the small window in the door, I could see the figure in the bed, so much smaller and frailer than the towering presence of my memory. James Wilson looked up as I entered, his eyes widening in recognition. The powerful banker who had once commanded rooms with his presence was gone, replaced by a pale, diminished version connected to monitors and IV lines. "Nathan," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you came." "Yes," I replied, standing awkwardly at the foot of the bed. "Your company," he managed between labored breaths. "Very impressive. Should have seen it. Your potential." It was not exactly an apology, but it was the closest thing to acknowledgement I had ever received from him. I moved closer to the bed, taking the seat beside him. "Thank you for coming." he continued. Did not think you would. I almost did not, I admitted. He nodded slightly. Deserved that. Was wrong. About everything. We sat in silence for a while, the beeping of the monitors the only sound. There was too much history between us for a deathbed reconciliation, too many wounds that could not be healed with a few words. But there was also no point in holding on to anger toward a broken man who had already lost so much. I forgive you, I said finally, not for his benefit but for my own. Not because you deserve it, but because I do not want to carry this anymore. He closed his eyes, a single tear tracking down his cheek. Thank you. My father survived the heart attack but faced a long recovery. I did not suddenly become a devoted son, but I did arrange for the best cardiac rehabilitation program, paying for it anonymously through the hospital. Some bridges could be rebuilt, others would remain crossed. The experience prompted me to create the Wilson Foundation, dedicated to providing scholarships for students estranged from their families. The first recipient was a brilliant young woman whose parents had cut her off when she chose environmental science over the family real estate business. Seeing her tearful gratitude when awarded the 4-year scholarship brought my journey full circle. My unexpected comeback story was never just about financial success or proving my father wrong. It was about creating the life I was meant to live, and then using that life to help others facing similar obstacles. Today, I share my story not to villainize my family, but to show that sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most meaningful destinations. Family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes it is the people who want you in their lives and accept you for who you are, like Mr. Rodriguez, who believed in me, like Jackson, who gave me my first real opportunity, like the MIT committee, who took a chance on a homeless kid with big dreams. Have you ever had to choose between what others wanted for you and what you knew was right for yourself? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of unexpected comebacks. And if you know someone who needs to hear that being rejected does not define their worth, share this video with them. Remember, sometimes being disowned is just the first step to discovering who you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening, and never stop fighting for your dreams, even when you have to fight alone.